Welcome, everyone, and happy Thursday. It is noon Eastern time here in Ambler, Pennsylvania, the booming metropolis just outside of Philadelphia, PA. Welcome. Thank you all for joining us. It is noon Eastern time. You know what that means? It's time for Talent Experience Live, the show that covers everything that you need to know in talent acquisition, talent management, recruiting, artificial intelligence, hiring, and human resources as a whole. And of course, this program is proudly brought to you by the good folks here at Phenom, whose purpose is to help 1 billion find the right work, much like McDonald's, who helps 1 billion eat, I think is, what is it? What? Anyway, I digress.
Billions and billions.
Billions, yeah, billions fed. There you go. And our purpose, no funny business about that, is to help 1 billion find the right work. And the way that we do that is through our Intelligent Talent Experience platform, which helps candidates find the right fit faster, employees evolve in their current roles and beyond, recruiters achieve next level productivity and efficiency, and managers, they get to build better teams through data, automation, and analytics. So if any of that interests you at all, don't walk to phenom.com immediately following this program, because we have a fun episode today. That's why I kind of making jokes in the beginning about McDonald's. Today we are talking about restaurant hiring, which is oftentimes much different, I think, than traditional hiring. The reason being is you need people every single day to make the food, to deliver the food, to make the drinks, to do all of these things. Without it, your organization will cease to exist, right? So the time is so pertinent when it comes to getting folks in the door, making sure that they're the right hire, and leveraging technology is something that more and more folks in the hospitality industry are leaning on to keep up with the Joneses, to ensure that they have that workforce in place that is going to effectively keep people happy and fed, because we all know that when someone is hungry, they're often cranky, which is most of you may be, since it is Thursday at noon Eastern time now. Anyway, I have a very special guest today to talk about restaurant hiring as a whole. Welcome, Bill Ventiecher, to the program. Bill, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Glad to
Awesome.
be back on the show.
Happy to have you, and I always love doing it in the studio. I know you're in Austin, the kind of would it be the food capital of Texas? I imagine that there's lots of trendy.
There's some amazing food in Austin. I think we're most well known for the amazing music scene there, but if you want an amazing breakfast taco, we probably are the capital of the most amazing breakfast tacos.
I need to go just for that alone and the music. Bill, thank you for joining. I wanted to do something a little bit different with you today. Obviously, we're going to talk about restaurant hiring, but speed is so vital in that industry. I was an awful waiter for a lot of my early 20s and late teens. It wasn't my passion, right? But one thing that I failed to do a lot of times was get food out to the table in a timely manner, right? I'd fire, food. I'd, end up talking, to another table for too long, chatting about life experiences, and I'd forget that there's food literally dying in the window, as they call it in the industry. So I want to talk about restaurant hiring, how it's changed, the conference that happened this past week, but I want to do it in kind of with that urgency. So I'm going to put you on the timer when it comes to delivering answers. I think 2 minutes or less, 60 seconds. No offense, you're no Nick Cage. All right. I'm kidding. No Gone in 60 seconds, but nonetheless, want to chat with you about this and put you on the clock. So we'll kind of dive right into it, if that's okay with you.
Well, yeah, I think this is a perfect time to be talking about what's happening in the restaurant industry. I have teenagers at my house, and I really believe that everybody at some point in their career should work in a restaurant.
1,000%.
It is the ultimate test of working in a pressure cooker, no pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
It's this combination of speed and grace under fire to create customer experiences and make sure that your customers are happy. No matter what's going on in the back of house, the front of house has to be an amazing experience. You have to greet people with a smile as soon as they come in the door, no matter how many people are yelling at you about waiting for a table, right? So, last weekend was the start of one of the biggest restaurant association shows. It was the National Restaurant Association's big conference up in Chicago. And there were thousands of vendors debuting brand new technology approaches. And even the keynote was Carla Hall from Top Chef.
Yes.
You know, the hooty hoo girl. And her whole keynote was all about how chefs and restaurateurs and franchises should be leading the industry in innovating and bringing technology to the forefront of the experience that restaurants are creating for their customers. And we've said on the show before, the hand-in-hand partnership of investing in that technology for your customer experience has to be happening on the candidate experience side too. You have to be hiring people faster. You have to be creating memorable experiences there, and you have to be hiring the right people that can deliver on that promise that you've made to your customers, and find people that want to stick with you for the long haul. Yeah. So, yeah, this is great. Fire away. I'll try and give you some quick answers so that we don't get any food dying in the window.
Yes, no food dying in the window, and make sure that folks don't hire Devin Fosters to work as their waiters, because I was the wrong hire. But Bill, we'll jump right into it. I'm going to get my handy dandy timer, and I'll get ready to set that for you once I ask you this. What is the state of restaurant hiring today? What are some of the biggest pain points that may be happening? Is it similar to what's happening across other industries, or are they unique to specifically the restaurant industry?
I think there's some, comparisons to other industries for sure. But one of the biggest ones that we hear is that hiring in the restaurant industry is like trying to fill a leaky bucket. They are one of the industries that probably has the highest turnover rate of frontline and hourly workers, front of house, back of house, than any other industry. And whether you're talking about QSR or fast casual, store managers are often reacting to that leaky bucket by just hiring anyone that has a pulse and making sure that there's someone there to meet the rush. I mean, I worked at Joe's Crab Shack, and we had to turn on the lights and dance whenever the kitchen got out of hand, got backed up, So, but on top of that, most restaurants are still using paper processes. They're still using their personal Gmail to reach out to try and schedule interviews with people. And the new Gen Z and millennial workers are expecting fast, mobile-first experiences. And you have to present that as your culture and as your company approach from the very beginning.
Yeah, you were under the gun there too.
Less
than a minute. You were gone in 60 seconds. I'm gonna call you Nick Cage from now on. You're absolutely right. I think when we talk about traditional restaurant application, I think of the old help wanted signs, right, that are in there. You go in. I remember I applied for one waiter role back in the day, and it was 7 pages long. Bill, I never finished the application. Probably because my drive wasn't there. But updating things, I think it makes sense, especially where, to your point, Carla Hall, they do need to be on the forefront. They're constantly innovating food and all sorts of things. So it makes sense. Why is it just a mentality thing? Is it a traditional thing where, gathering for foods is obviously very traditional. Why are restaurants stuck in the past when it comes to hiring? Is it because, this is the way that they've made their milkshakes for 50 years and they're not going to change anything? Why does this come into play here?
All right, order in.
Yes.
I think it's not nostalgia. It is not some throwback to the hunter-gatherers of, using this kind of process to hire people. I think it's very simple. I think managers are trying to manage the restaurant. And if they have a process that's not broken, sometimes there's very little desire to change it, to rock the boat. You have corporate HR innovating. Yep. But many corporate HR teams aren't supporting at the field level, which leaves managers to have to do this all on their own. And if they can put a sign in the window that says now hiring and have someone walk in and scratch out their information on a piece of paper so that they can immediately have an interview, that's the way to go, right? Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is that we now have the tools to help managers act quickly and self-serve using modern technology that allows them to spend their time serving customers on the restaurant floor and not chasing people by cold calling an applicant or trying to handle somebody that just walked in off the floor. We don't want them to have to use their spreadsheets or flyers or texting or cold calling someone that applied on Craigslist or, constantly having to post things on Indeed. We have to give them the support that they need at the field and district level for these big managers to be able to get away from using legacy systems and start to adopt tools that can fill the gap and allow them to change the way that they're spending their day.
Yeah. Again, under the
I beat the timer again.
You did. People are going to be excited when the timer goes off. I just want to let everyone know. But you're right. Managers shouldn't be spending time chasing down applicants or posting on job boards. They should be, solving the real issues. Like, why is there mayo on this sandwich when I asked for no mayo? Right? Like, those are the things where I think of managers, and that ties into kind of the candidate experience as well. You've said that the candidate experience is the business experience. Can you unpack that a little bit for us? What does that mean? Obviously, I joke about a messed up order, or and God forbid a food allergy or something like that does happen. But what is the candidate and business experience? How do those tie in?
This is one of those industries that's you can say this about lots of different companies that are in hospitality. Whether you're at a hotel, whether you are boarding an airline, whether you're taking a cruise, these are companies that are creating experiences and serving groups of people. You never know what your customer is dealing with, whether it's a birthday or a special event. Every meal that someone comes into a restaurant, unless they're like ordering fast food through a drive-through, there's different expectations for that too. They want that fast. They want it accurate. The last thing they want is to drive away and realize that their order is completely wrong, which I think has happened to all of us, right? But the candidate experience is the business experience, because whether your next hire is a barista or a cashier or a server, that person is likely one of your customers too. And someone who interacts with your guests every day that is slow or unwelcoming or confusing, imagine how your candidates feel. Yep. If your candidates are trying to apply to a job with your company and it takes 7 pages of application and they don't hear back anything for 3 weeks, you've immediately set, an unhappy experience in motion. Yeah. It's like taking a reservation and someone shows up for a table and the restaurant's full, and they say, "Oh yeah, we'll seat you in an hour and a half." Nobody wants an anniversary dinner to go that way, right? Nope. Nobody wants to apply for a job and feel like their application went into a black hole. Yeah. So your candidate experience and your business experience are forever tied together in a hospitality type industry like this. And if you can get faster hires, if you can hire people that have that extra DNA
there it is. That was what everyone wanted, was a little George Michael and Careless Whisper coming into their ear. Bill, the food's gone. We got to continue on. But cool. I think I have a good segue where you can continue on that thought process. What are restaurant workers truly looking for? You mentioned that oftentimes they are the customers, right? They want that experience where they don't have to wait an hour and a half for an anniversary dinner. They don't want to fill out a paper application because those get lost, right? Yeah. Especially in a restaurant, things catch on fire. I've got stories about restaurants, Bill, that I could tell you. But what are the employees or the candidates truly looking for in an experience?
I think it's really easy. I mean, I from what we hear and from what industry insiders are researching, like the National Restaurant Association does a report that's all about the characteristics of a restaurant employee. They want 3 things. They want speed, they want clarity, and they want respect for their time. So they want to be able to apply quickly. They want to understand what role they're applying to, where is the restaurant, what are the hours, what's expected of them in this role. And they don't want to feel like their time is wasted. They have a family to take care of. Mm-hmm. They are on a 15-minute break from their current job. They need to feel like they are able to get something done quickly. And I think that's really, really important. I mean, If you think about most restaurant workers today being under the age of 35, these are your new digital nomads. A huge portion of restaurant workers in front of house and back of house, English isn't their first language. They need an application process that shows that this company is welcoming of them too. Mm-hmm. You need to have multilingual application processes. You need to have the point where if they are the right fit for the role and they're available, they can schedule an appointment to speak to a manager right there. If they're not, tell them they're not the right fit. Let them go apply to a job somewhere else. Yep. That's, I really think, what they're looking for.
Yeah. Look at order up, order out, and you're under the buzzer.
We're slinging.
You're crushing it.
Well, just to finish that up, the timer's off. But the last thing they want is to be ghosted. Yeah. And I think hiring managers and recruiters across the HR industry are dealing with ghosting right now. Yeah. People apply, schedule an interview, and then it's like they fell off the face of the earth. Yeah. Especially in frontline roles, candidates are feeling that every single day. And that's one of the biggest things. All those other things being said, they want to be seen and they want to feel like they haven't just tossed their application into a black hole. Yeah,
I mean, how many times have you been out to dinner before where you throw on an appetizer, right? Or an extra drink or something, and you're like, I think the waiter or bartender forgot, right? Yeah. That feeling on a candidate level is something that you never want to have. You mentioned one thing there that I think is truly unique about this particular industry, and it may be, English as a second language, but overall the workforce of a restaurant is truly a melting pot. I think it is the only place where you can have a chef dressed like a pirate, covered in tattoos and earrings and the whole nine, taking cigarette breaks all the time, a substitute teacher, working in waiting tables, and then a 16-year-old being the host, right? And everyone else mixed in between. How important is it to create an application process, not that just that's multilingual, but that is inclusive to all of those different personas? Because when we talk about frontline versus knowledge workers or things like that, they're often pretty black and white. I think the hospitality industry is anything but black and white. It's the most colorful thing that you can imagine, and there are great stories that you'll hear from restaurant workers as well. But how do you include that in the hiring process to make sure that all of those different personas feel not just welcomed, but also kind of marketed and personalized to them?
I love how you put that. You start the timer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Jeez. See, this is why I was a terrible waiter. I'm just forgetting things. We're up.
So I love how you put that. I think that it absolutely is one of the biggest melting pots in all jobs that you can do. That's why shows like The Bear are so popular. There's amazing stories, and there's drama, and there's bad decisions and good decisions. And so yes, you have to have a hiring process that immediately communicates what your culture is, so that people know what they're getting into. But what I touched on was a very simple example, like culture and language fit and candidate journey is really essential for very simple things. Like if the National Restaurant Association is saying that 30% of all restaurant workers choose a different language other than English as their language that they speak at home, if it makes it really, really difficult for them to apply in an all English application process, they immediately feel like they're not going to be a good fit. You have to be able to communicate what your requirements are for work eligibility, for customer-facing expectations, for how much English do you have to speak, how much those challenges have to be communicated as early as possible. And right now, the only way managers are really figuring all that out is when someone comes in the door. But imagine the different experience for a hiring manager who's already super busy, or a candidate who's desperately trying to find the right fit job for them. If you could take care of all that stuff up front, right from a mobile device, as soon as they find the job, and say, I can do this. This is a perfect fit for me. Or this isn't exactly, I've worked in this kind of environment before. This is very clear that this isn't something that I would like to do or would excel at. So
there you go.
So they get it right there from the front.
It is right up. You
should let that play. That's awesome.
I should. That is the album where they earned the exclamation point, as well as Deadpool put it in the first.
But just to sum that up, I think they want to be seen. They want to feel like it's easy to apply. It clearly communicates when they should show up, and they have found some place that they can stay and not be a bad fit and last a week and then churn out, which is the hardest problem that hiring managers are dealing with right now.
And there has been a digitization of the entire industry as a whole.
Yeah.
I don't see people handwriting orders down anymore and plopping them in the window and shouting fire. Everything's done from a cell phone, type of POS system. Why wouldn't that be consistent with the application process?
Yeah.
Why would you, apply in an antiquated way, and then as soon as you are, put to work, you have to deal with technology on a regular basis. So that makes sense. Speaking of technology, how is automation and AI making its way into this specific industry? I don't think it's taking jobs. I've been to the bars where the robot will make you a cocktail. It's not the same, right? They're not a therapist. You can't really talk to them. But obviously, it is changing all industries. So how is it from the forefront of human resources and hiring?
So I think AI and automation is absolutely changing the way that corporate recruiting teams and field managers are working together. Yep. It's allowing corporate recruiting teams to support the field and district managers and hiring managers without hiring a single additional recruiter for their team, which is totally game-changing. I think the whole reason why we're not seeing a whole lot of extension to the big challenge of hiring hundreds of employees to keep that revolving door filled is because they can't handle that volume. Yeah. So automation is going to handle all of those repetitive parts of hiring. It's the early screening to determine the right fit and that they meet the work requirements and restrictions. It's the reminders and the rediscovery and ultimately the scheduling, where if you can have a hiring manager put a QR code up in the window of their store instead of a now hiring sign, and someone can walk in while they're shopping or while they're eating there, scan the QR code and fill out an application in 3 minutes and have an interview the next day, that's changing the game. And that's where AI and automation is really changing the way that hiring managers are interacting with candidates and finding a better fit and spending more time helping their customers instead of digging through applications and resumes and trying to find an email address and whatever. So
yeah, 100%. And I think I love George Michael and Wham, but we're gonna pause it. And you were just under the gun at 145 there. I think of the future state of this, right? Where you mentioned a QR code in the window could be a unique one for someone who's in the restaurant themselves. All of a sudden, a hiring manager gets a notification that says, "Hey, somebody just applied to this role. Shoot them a text, walk over and talk." That's how I think a lot of...
Oh, yeah. By the way, they're sitting in section 4.
Yes, exactly. They're right here. That's how a lot of restaurant hiring happens, right? It is very conversational because you want to see how they're going to interact with customers. It's through referrals. It's through all of these things that we've talked about forever, but it just happens at such a quick pace in the restaurant industry. Another way that candidates communicate is with chatbots. It's also very quick back and forth. Is that something that you think also has a huge impact, or is it different because the candidate place is different?
No, listen, I think you nailed it. The chatbot technology is now becoming super, super common across the restaurant industry. And I get it. It is one of the best ways to speed up the application process and drive someone to understand if they have the right fit through a simple conversational back and forth via chatbot. Yep. They can do it just like they're texting their buddies. They can go on a website, they can interact with a chatbot, and they can understand if they're a good fit and apply in a matter of minutes, right? So I think it's a perfect way to break down the barriers for applications and give your candidates a way to apply to a job in less time than it takes to go through a drive-through at Whataburger, and if you engage technology that provides a chatbot that's multilingual, then you've met that requirement, right? If it's mobile first, you've met that requirement, because now there's no excuse of I had to go to the library to use a computer, or they can apply from anywhere.
Yeah.
But here's and I think everybody would agree, right? If you're looking into this technology, you know that chatbots is a way that almost every restaurant brand is looking at changing the game. But it can't be the only thing.
Yeah.
I think that some people have gone too far, and they've said, we're going to eliminate everything in the application process except for this conversational AI.
Yep.
That's just not the way that everybody is going to want to apply to a job. You still have to have a little bit more of the traditional application process too. You need a career site that can be completely customized by language, by location, match them to the restaurant that's closest to them that they didn't even know was there. Yeah. So they wouldn't think about applying to your job because the only location they're aware of is 20 miles away through traffic. Mm-hmm. And there's no way that they can go work at that job and make it to pick up their kids after school.
Yeah.
But now you've got a fully customized site that shows that there's a location that's closer to them that has open...
Finish thought. Get it out. We need
that
hands.
Has open spots that's a perfect fit for them. So I think that's the big warning. You want to go beyond the chat combo and get into the chat conversation and get into a truly customized experience, like a hiring event or a QR code or a customized career site, and that's where a platform of technology really changes the game.
Yeah, I mean, and from a business perspective, right? Every restaurant has a website. You can't eat via you can order food online, right, with some of them, but it's there for findability, discoverability, right, so that people can learn more about different menu options.
Schedule a table,
yes.
Schedule an interview. It should be right next to each other, right?
100% should. It should be quick and easy, which is what kind of brings me to my next question. Hiring in restaurants oftentimes needs to happen fast, yesterday, right? Sometimes there's some fiery people that work at restaurants. I've seen people walk out on the job in the middle of it, roll up their apron and leave. You need coverage yesterday for somebody like that, right? How does AI help alleviate some of this? Is there a button that you can press that hits everyone who's applied in the past 60 days and say, hey, you still open? We need somebody Sunday.
I think that's it, right? I think that scheduling and then re-engagement with people is the key, where this automation technology is completely changing the experience for hiring managers and candidates. The fact that you can schedule a whole group of applicants in a hiring event and have them all show up at the same time without having to do any of the back and forth and rescheduling and communication individually with all of them is incredible. The idea that you can have a interview set up with somebody that applied to your job before but wasn't the right fit, but is available and captured in your platform, where a hiring manager can pull up their phone, reactivate or post a job all by themselves, and have a list of all the past people that they can communicate with at the touch of a button and say, hey, we're hiring again. Are you interested? Pick a time. I'll see you next week.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, that I think there's a lot of hiring managers out there that would love to see this technology available to them. And some of them have their own budgets at the store level or at the store operations level, where if they knew they had a tool like this that would stop them from having to log into Workday in the back office and could actually allow them to do this on their phone and be back out on the floor helping customers celebrate their birthday or something, like that's really where technology is starting to change the experience of the people that are creating, memorable restaurant environments.
Yeah. No, and the food's out the door. We're getting ready to fire dessert coming up here. You mentioned the app there, and you mentioned the back office. The back office is for payroll. It is for the new menu items that are coming out, the specials of last week or whatever it may be. If you put yourself in the situation of a server just walked out because one Karen told them too many times, that they brought the wrong thing out, whatever the case may be. Obviously, I'm being a little facetious there. We love Karens. It's just the saying. Anyway, I imagine a manager having to kind of lace up their boots, get out on the floor, start taking tables, pouring drinks, whatever it may be, because they have to make sure that the show goes on, right? No matter what happens. But the ability to, in between those chaotic situations, being able to market out to candidates to get interviews scheduled for tomorrow, because you have a 15 top coming in at 7:30
Yeah.
and only one person's on, has to be a huge game changer. What other things can this app really help from the ground floor for managers?
Yeah, I mean, it's really how, like I said, how corporate HR teams can help support the field and be in closer communication and give them more freedom and autonomy without having to hire more people to handle the crush of need at the store level, right? And if it makes the end-to-end job posting, interview scheduling, interviewing, and hiring process something that managers can do.
Yeah.
It gives them the automation to do it quickly and the autonomy to do it on their own, but they're doing it in an informed way because they are connected to this entire database of everyone that even started an application for their store, and not just the people who finished the application.
Yeah.
So I think that ability to post jobs, to review candidates, to schedule interviews all on their own, and to find people that interviewed for them in the past and keep track of how they're communicating to those people is just incredible. And I would love for people to see what that experience could really look like. You imagine it's the same way as posting something on their own social media.
Yeah.
And it's a way for them to interact no matter where they're at in the restaurant. If they're in the back office, if they're unloading a truck, if they're trying to get payroll, if they're counting down the tills and tips at the end of the day, they have it right there. They don't have to pull up a separate system and log in. And it's amazing.
Yeah. No, that's the way we always want it, right? Is to have everything centralized in that one area. A lot of restaurant work is manual, right?
Yeah.
The food has to get made. The drinks have to be delivered to tables. If you could wave a magic wand, and there was one thing that you could have restaurant hiring managers stop doing manually to create a better experience for their candidates, what would it be and why?
That's easy. You don't even have to start the timer for this one. One of the most amazing things that I came across, we do the state of high volume hiring report. This year we're calling it the state of hiring automation. We're going to start working on that, and we're going to launch it later this summer. And what we did was to audit the use of AI and automation across some of the world's most favorite brands, was to actually sit down and apply to a job.
Yeah.
Put ourselves in the shoes of that person applying for that waiter job, hostess job, whatever, and see what the application process looks like. And I got to tell you, for the restaurant companies that I applied to, I got a call from the actual restaurant manager asking me if I could have an interview.
Yeah.
And that's the number one thing. We have got to get our hiring managers to stop cold calling applicants to get them on the phone for an interview.
Yeah.
You have got to be able to have a tool that allows them to communicate and keep in touch with people without having to sit down and go through and play phone tag with people. How many people in this age group that work in restaurants are going to answer an unknown phone number when they call, regardless if they just applied for a job?
Yep.
You've got to find a better way. So that's the number one thing.
Okay. All right. How did you answer? I guess you answered the phone when the hiring manager called?
I did.
How did that conversation go? I need to know. We won't name names, but
I had to say, it's very important for us to understand what the application process is like for candidates that are using technology. So I work for Phenom. We are doing an audit of the best AI and automation practices out there in restaurants and retail and hospitality. So I'm sorry. I hope I didn't waste your time. Good luck with your hiring. Let us know if we can help.
He probably cursed like a sailor.
No!
After he got off the phone. This guy's wasting my time. No, I'm kidding. I'm sure it was a lovely conversation.
I met some nice people.
Yes. The next thing that I think is very unique to the hospitality and restaurant space is there's different recruiting models, right? There are centralized, decentralized. Not that one works better than the other. Are we able to work with all of those different structures? Because there are franchisees that are out there. There are, I don't want to call them mom and pop, but smaller, restaurant chains that are all managed by one, particular human resources group. How does that work, and how does Phenom interact with it?
Well, I think somebody who's not in this industry probably doesn't realize this. But yeah, I mean, you have centralized hiring, which is essentially where all of the hiring for all the distributed locations is handled by a centralized team of recruiters all in an office somewhere. Mm-hmm. They do full service support for all the restaurant people. It very rarely happens. But then you have the decentralized model where the HR team is like, good luck.
Yep.
And the HR and the managers are expected to handle all of that on their own. Mm-hmm. I don't think that would be their choice to do that. They know that the success of their business or the success of their franchise chain relies on successful hiring and amazing, memorable experiences, right? So then you have this hybrid model, which I really think is the best of both worlds, and that's where technology like what Phenom has can be brought to bear to support all of the restaurants and the local district managers and restaurant managers without having to hire a ton more people on the recruiting side to support their needs. And you get all of the corporate tools, corporate standards, the structure, the organization, the scheduling, the follow-up, all of that amazing stuff without having to have someone on the recruiting side approving everything and managing everything. So that hybrid model, I think, is the best of both worlds. But that's definitely a consideration for anyone looking to improve this technology the same way they're improving the technology on the way that they're serving their customers. So you have to think about which model your company is operating under and how that technology is going to change the way that you're interacting with different parts of your business.
Yeah, I mean, I think of restaurant hiring. If you have that hybrid model, you can still get the traditional applicant who went through the career site, interacted with the chatbot, and got hired that way. But you can also hire my cousin Tommy, who just needs a little bit of help because he just got out of prison. And he, I obviously I kid there, but there are. You think of restaurants, there are opportunities where it is referral based, right? Not all of hiring is going to be that way, but that's the lifeblood of a lot of.
And that's definitely true. Like someone who has found that perfect fit, that's a great place to work. They're going to tell everybody.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And that's where this hybrid model is the best of both worlds. Yep. It's local action with global insight. You have a 10,000-foot view of the technology and everything that's happening, but those local decisions can still be made using the technology or hiring the person that walked in the door. Yep. And that is where you need that balance and that adjustment for every single company, because they're all unique.
Yeah. Speaking of unique, right? How do structured interviews and interview intelligence tie in? Because I think that the individual that works at Red Lobster in Madison Square Garden, Times Square, New York, is going to have a far different interview process than one that works in Omaha, Nebraska.
But why? Why should
fair.
I'm picking on you, but they shouldn't. Mm-hmm. If you have the technology in place, like some of the technology that's a part of the Phenom platform, where you have structured interviews, you have now created a way that every restaurant operates with a playbook, right? Mm-hmm. They have a full menu. They have changes to the menu. They stand up in the morning and they say, here's the run of the day. Here are the specials. Back of house, here's how you're going to run the orders. Front of house, this is how we have these special events, this 17 top coming in at this time, and you have a daily playbook. If you could have that same supportive playbook when it comes to hiring and interviewing somebody, it gives you consistency, it gives you speed, and it gives you the ability to repeat successful actions. So structured interviews is something that is that pilot and that guide for managers. It's kind of like a pre-flight checklist for a pilot, right? The reason why they do that is because there's a million distractions. You need to make sure that every step is taken in order, or something could go horribly wrong. So now you have interview guides, digital scorecards. You have measurement tools that tell you whether or not this candidate is going to meet your need based on the criteria that you've put into it. And now, regardless of whether or not it's the bar manager, the assistant manager, the district manager, or the guy who just took over the store yesterday, you now have a consistent interview process that removes bias, that helps you find the right person that is not going to immediately say, whoop, this was a mistake, and eject back out of your restaurant. And that's an additional tool that is totally going to change the way that that restaurants are dealing with that churn and that attraction issue, is by using those kinds of technologies.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to some of the interviews that I, had, and the wild questions that I was asked. Bill, if you were a reptile, what does that have to do with this job? But you're right. If they are consistent, no matter where you are, it's also for some of these global or national chains, easy for people to move from place to place when it comes to roles, right? And understand that will be consistent throughout, and that you're not going to run into any of those issues.
Well, you know what it eliminates too? Like, I think a lot of really successful managers that are dealing with the pressures of and the heat of being in a restaurant, right? They're operating by snap decisions and gut feel to make sure that they're getting through the dinner service. You don't want to go with gut decisions and gut feel when you're ordering food for the next week.
No.
You don't want to go with gut decisions or gut feel when you're counting down the till at the end of the night. Why would you go with a gut decision when you're hiring somebody? You need the technology that's going to give you the ability to say, yes, this person checks every box. This is exactly the kind of person I'm looking for. Or this person's 80% there. They're available right now. I think I can train them up on the stuff that they're short on. And with that consistency, it's no more of a, okay, let's hire them. Because nobody wants to do that.
No, absolutely not. Otherwise, I wouldn't have worked there. I was a gut decision, Bill. You're taking the Devin Fosters out of the restaurant industry.
Stop.
Well, we'll turn the timer off.
Okay.
For this last question, because I think it's an important one. We've talked about a lot today. We've had a lot of fun. What is one thing that you think brands can do to modernize their hiring experience today? Obviously, we want them to go out and purchase, Phenom and have the gold standard of experiences. But is there anything that they can do maybe today without entirely overhauling their tech stack?
I'll put it in the thought of like walking into a restaurant. If you are going to walk in to go eat somewhere and you walk up and the front door is jammed and you can't get into the restaurant, you're going to turn around and go somewhere else. If you are trying to hire a whole bunch of really talented front of house and back of house staff in a restaurant environment, quick service, fast casual, whatever, you have to fix the front door. You can't rely on posting jobs on Craigslist or Indeed. You have to have an amazing career site set up, and one that engages with a candidate on any device, helps them understand where there's an open job near them, and helps drive them towards having a conversation with a hiring manager. I think outside of all of this other technology of making it mobile and using structured interviews, that's where you've got to start. You've got to fix the front door. If they can't even begin to have a successful application process, they're not going to apply to work for you. And it's too competitive out there. They could easily go to the next fast casual restaurant where they have built skills serving, customers, and apply there. if they apply for a job and they don't hear back in 3 days, they're going to the next place on their list. And you fix that front door, you're going to start winning more of the best candidates that are available to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think of, the restaurants in strip malls and things like that. They're right next door, right? If that door is broken, they're going to walk 30 feet down to the next restaurant and get what they're looking for. Bill, this has been a fun conversation.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. The timer was fun. It's always nice to hear Wham on a Thursday. I appreciate it. If folks want to, learn more, I know you have the upcoming report coming out, things like that.
Yeah.
But you can look at the camera, promote what you need to promote, and we'll get you out of here and get you a meal.
I hope you'll have me back.
Of course.
We have lots of big plans for this summer. We are doing the state of hiring automation. We are going to have Industry Week again this year. So we'll have a day of demonstrations of some of the technologies we talked about today. And you'll get to hear from people in the hospitality industry, whether it's serving food on a cruise ship, a hotel floating on the ocean, or if it's somebody that's actually out there trying to, dance between orders like at Joe's Crab Shack. So definitely stay tuned for those kinds of things. We'll talk about it some more as we get into the summer for sure. But amazing stuff coming, and we'll talk about it again soon.
Awesome. Can't wait to have you on again.
Yeah.
And for those of you at home, Phenom.com, you can find everything, as I mentioned at the top of the program. Happy Thursday. Everyone stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy. We'll see you next week because we do this every damn Thursday, and have a wonderful weekend. Thanks so much.